Hey, what's up, everybody? Can you hear me? I have a handheld mic this time. Let me know. Jump in the chat box and let me know that you can at least hear me and everything's configured properly. And we will get started here very shortly. Man, it's cold, you guys. If you're wondering, I'm actually in a hotel. What do we call this? An unused hotel conference room. Let's see, chat box. Cool. So I'm going to wait for you guys to jump in the chat box and confirm that you can actually hear me, and then we will get started. Hold on a second. Cool. What's up? What's up, Jim? Hello, Peggy. Cool. Welcome, you guys. Brad, what's up? Paris, Terry, hey. Gregory, awesome. Cool. Loud and clear. That's good to hear. Awesome. Thank you. So, what do I want to say before we get started here? I usually wait a couple minutes for the stragglers to show up. One thing I'm going to repeat a couple of times before we get started, so you'll get sick of me hearing this or saying this. This is a live webinar, okay? So I understand that most webinars that happen are fake live webinars where they like claim it's live and it's just a recording. This is an actual live webinar. In fact, I don't know how to prove it to you, but this is live. Oh, I'm reading your chat, so you know it's live. But every time I do these webinars, people are like, I want you to prove it's real. Hold a newspaper up to the camera or whatever. And it's like, this is actually live, okay? So I understand that's most people, and I'm not against recorded webinars as long as you are like honest about the fact they're recorded. This one's live. Just want to be clear about that. What's up, Bruce, Pete, Randy, Fred, Thea? What's up, Peter? Nice name. Hi, Lisa. Chris. Oh yeah, what's up, Chris? Chris, the book prepper. German. Nikos. Hello, everybody. Jamie. Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. So we'll get started in a couple minutes. I live by the creed that stragglers have feelings too. That may or may not be true, but that's what my grandmother always told me. So we'll wait for them. There's always a few people late, and we will get started. So the couple things I'll say, I always say this, but take notes because I talk really, really fast, and it's not as much because it's an uncontrollable thing. It's just a practical thing where I have a lot of material to get through. And so it would really, really benefit you if you would just take some notes. And at the end, I will give you the option, a way to get the webinar transcripts. Like I had them professionally of the last time I did this. So like professionally transcribed. So that will be an option, but I wouldn't rely on that. I would definitely take some notes. And what else do I want to say? I guess get your questions ready for the Q&A at the end. What's up, Hugh, Stan, Scott? Hello, hello. Cool. So I'm just gonna slurp my coffee. I don't have a mic stand for that. Actually, I have to do this like Run DMC style with the mic in my hand. Hey, Robert. Yeah, where are you guys from? So we have North Carolina, England. So just to be clear about what we're going to talk about, again, I'll give it like 2 minutes for those of you just logged in, maybe 2 minutes, and we'll just like dive into it. So the way this is going to go is I'm going to talk for about 50 minutes, 50 minutes, and then I'll show you a little thing at the end, and then we'll go to Q&A. Okay, so that's how this is going to go. And this is one important thing. I am going to turn the chat box off just while I'm presenting. I'll turn it back on for the Q&A. So if you want to make fun of me or insult me or brag about anything or any sort of bizarre behavior, because you're essentially anonymous right now, now would be the time to do that in the chat box. And then there'll be time to make fun of me at the end as well. But the chat box is about to go off. So this will be the time. Let me. And by the way, I did send you guys an email asking for questions. If you had any questions you wanted me, like your biggest questions about textbooks, and if you wanted me to address them. And so I did get all those. I didn't get to respond to everybody but just know that I did read all those. So I'm going to incorporate a lot of that into, yeah, I'm in a, Don's saying, looks like I'm in a basement. I'm in a hotel conference room right now that I, without any permission from anyone, hijacked. So if anyone busts in here at any moment, this will get interesting. What do you say we get into, we'll give it 1 minute. Is that cool, you guys? 1 minute for the stragglers. And, oh, Peter's asking if you can make fun of me the whole time. Yes, but you can't do it with an audience. That's the thing. So like, I'm going to turn the chat box off. So you can mock me, you can go blah, blah, all that stuff, but like, I won't be able to see it and no one else will be able to see it. That's how it works. So, okay, what do you say we get started? Because I am just killing time right now. So let's do this. What's up, Leslie in Michigan? What's up, everybody? So now I'm going to close the chat box and I'm going to turn this back on. In fact, I'm going to put a message up right now that just says, hey, I'll turn the chat box. Wait a minute, let's do this. Okay, turn the chat box off. You were warned. And I'm going to post a little message here. Okay, so you should see a message that says turn it back on. Okay, so let's get into it, you guys. Let's do this. Game on. Okay. This is where things always go horribly wrong. Okay, you should see a giant blue slide right now that says textbook annihilation. I'm incredibly paranoid about I can't see what you can see right now. I'm incredibly paranoid about you not seeing the slides because it's happened a couple times before and I've been talking to myself for literally an hour. It was really embarrassing. So if any of you are Zen Arbitrage members, which is not what this webinar is about, or at least not until the end, but if any of you are Zen Arbitrage members, you have my cell number, text me if something goes wrong, but only if it goes wrong, okay? Because I don't want like false negatives. I'm going to stop and look at my phone every time I get a text. So only text me if something's gone horribly wrong, and that would alleviate my concerns about doing this wrong. Okay, you guys, so let's get into it. Thank you guys so much for being here. I always say the people that show up on these webinars live, and again, this is live for those of you who just turned on. This is not some recorded webinar. This is actually live. Those of you who actually take the time to invest in your business with your time, not just your money, because anyone can throw money at a course or a webinar. Those of you that actually never watch it, right? Those of you that show up and you're here right now, this puts you in that top like 1 to 5% of people that actually are like taking your lives seriously. So really thank you seriously for being here. It really is a great testament to what what you guys are capable of and the direction you're going in your life and business, if the fact that you're here at all. Okay, so thank you guys so much. Welcome to Textbook Annihilation. I'm going to teach you in 50 minutes, 50 minutes, everything there is to know about profiting off of textbooks and the upcoming textbook season, which is going to get interesting. One thing I'll say before we dive into this, shut down all the internets and the illegal downloading that you're doing, all that stuff, because this is a data heavy thing when you're talking about video, and the video get choppy, my voice will get choppy. My connection is solid, right? I've got a million bazillion gigabytes of data. My connection is like Ethernet. So if there's any slowing or anything, that's on your end. So please shut everything down because it will benefit you, and take some notes too. And I mentioned before, but at the end, I will give you the option of getting the transcripts for this webinar, but it will really benefit you to take some notes. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about in this webinar, what I call the 3 pillars of textbook season profits. Number 1 is textbook intelligence, and this is basically all of the things that go into profiting off of textbooks, all little details that most people miss. Pillar number 2 is textbook pricing, which is not a very sexy subject, but man, I cannot stress this enough. This is where most of the money is made or lost when it comes to textbooks specifically. So I'm going to talk about exactly how to price your textbooks. This is like probably the most important part of this webinar. And then textbook sourcing. I'm going to give you one place, one umbrella, one category of source that has 8 mini sources within it. And you can basically do all your textbook sourcing in one physical location. I know this sounds crazy. You think it doesn't make any sense. It will all become clear at the very end. And then lastly, I'm going to give you reveal the largest source of textbooks in the world, how you can get other people to sift through it for you, find the profitable books, and then sell them to you for pennies on the dollar. Seriously. And then at the end, we're going to do lots of Q&A, and we'll talk about any textbook related questions that you have. And we can just go as long as we have to until someone kicks me out of this hotel room that I'm squatting currently. Okay. So our hotel conference room. So who am I? Well, the answer is clearly by this photo, the answer to that question is I'm a colossal doofus, but aside from being a colossal doofus, my name is Peter Valley. I've been selling on Amazon since 2007. I do the website FBAmastery.com, which in all likelihood is probably maybe how you found this webinar. I accidentally somehow became the most published author on Amazon selling in history, which is a very pretentious title that I gave myself, but it's actually factually correct. If you go to my Amazon author page, there's 14 books right now that I have. Don't do this right now, by the way, because I want you to focus on this webinar, but I have 14 books in print. And it just happened by accident, not because I'm actually like smart or anything. Published a bunch of books, blah, 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 right? Okay, so I'm not going to go into the boring stuff about testimonials. The one thing I want to say, and I think this is important because I think you guys are probably like me when you get on a webinar and you don't know the person who's teaching you, you're suspicious, right? So what I do is I usually spend the first 10 minutes of a webinar kind of sitting back with my arms crossed like, okay, prove to me this is going to be worth my time. And if they don't prove it to me, I log off the webinar. So I want you to know that how do I put this? I want you to know that I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so whether or not you believe that's true, that's up to you. But I'm not going to go through all these testimonials, but I just want you to know that at least some people have at least been duped into thinking that I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all these, but these are some things people have had to say about me. Again, this is really boring. I apologize. In fact, yeah, let's not even deal with this. But let me actually show you one. Okay, this is one I want to show you. So this is somebody who was on a live webinar, not this webinar, but a different webinar, just so you know that I'm going to deliver you profitable content you can actually make money with. A lot of people, they do these webinars that are free and they hold a bunch of stuff back, right? And then they try to sell you something that makes it all work, right? I don't play those shenanigans. So I actually teach you stuff you can make money with. This was somebody who was on a different webinar that I gave, a free webinar, and they got back to me and they made $3,500 in the first 90 days off of the material that I gave away for free in that webinar. And they sent the screenshot of their sales, $3,587.35. So the point is, I don't hold anything back. Okay, I don't play around with those games where like you're left like, oh, I got to buy this thing to make it work. I'm actually going to teach you stuff that works that you can make money with immediately. But most importantly, beyond all that, you guys, I made it into Woman's World magazine. Okay, so which has a circulation of like 4 million or something. Who knew? I've never even heard of it. But you look at the bottom there, they shouted out FBAmastery.com last spring, and I got a windfall of new subscribers and new readers who wanted to know where the muffin recipes were on my website, and I had to let them down gently that I don't do muffin recipes. But anyway, never mind what I've done. What motivates me? Okay. And again, this is something else. Before we get to the meat of this webinar, I do think it's important for you to know who I am and what motivates me. And actually, I can see the stats, by the way, on these webinars. I can see when people log off. And inevitably, when I say what I'm about to say, the next couple slides, a bunch of people log off because they're offended. And I don't really care because it's a free webinar, so I can say whatever I want, right? But what motivates me and why I'm in this business is that I'm firmly, unapologetically against working for anyone else. Okay, that's what motivates me as an entrepreneur, as an Amazon seller. That's why I do what I do. And I believe that the highest and most noble of your personal goals is freedom, okay? More than anything else. So that's what selling on Amazon and what this webinar fundamentally is about maximizing your freedom, okay? And for some reason, people think that's a jab at them if they like have a job. That's not a jab. It's just literally just a guiding principle in my life is to maximize my personal freedom. That's why I'm here, okay? The next thing I want to say is that your time is your most precious asset, period. Time is infinitely more valuable than your money. And I want you to think about this. If I came into your house, right, and I stole all your money, you could replace that money, right, in theory, okay? But you can never get this hour we're going to spend together back, okay? So I want you to hold me to a really high standard here that don't let me waste your time. And I promise to you, I will not waste your time because that is the one thing you can't get back. So if you guys are cool with me doing my very best to make this webinar worth your time, what do you say we proceed? Here's what you're going to learn by the time we get to the end of this 50-ish minute webinar. A deep knowledge of textbooks, how to price textbooks for maximum profits, the best sources of textbooks, and then at the end, we're going to do tons of Q&A, and I'll answer any textbook-related questions. I'll open the chat box back up, and that's how it's going to go. And at the very end, or before the Q&A, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to pull back the curtain on the mothership of textbook sourcing. and how to access a massive database of profitable textbooks that others have curated for you, how to buy them, have them shipped to Amazon for you without ever touching a book. I know it sounds insane, but there is still a lot of time to get a massive amount of books into Amazon before textbook season hits, which is, I'm going to talk about when that happens here in a minute. But time is short, right? So you need to take some quick action. So I'm going to reveal that what I'm going to call, and I think it lives up to this, the holy grail of textbook sourcing, just before we go to Q&A. So here again are the three pillars of textbook profits: textbook intelligence, textbook sourcing, and textbook pricing. And then we're going to take all three of these pillars online and we're going to tie them together into one integrated system. And it's just going to be amazing. Okay, so here's the deal. I started out as the world's worst, most inefficient Amazon seller ever. Okay, so whatever you're doing, okay, I've done it worse. I've drove 45 minutes to garage sales that I found on Craigslist because they said, hey, we got a box of books. And if any of you know anything about selling books on Amazon, that almost never works out, okay? I once drove an hour into San Fernando Valley outside of LA to buy 3 boxes of computer books from the 1990s because I was so new. I didn't know that computer books from the 90s were probably not worth money. I used to skateboard like 5 or maybe almost every day, 5 days a week or so, to a college dumpster that only had books, literally maybe 1 out of 5 times that I went there. And then even when I found books, I had to balance them on my skateboard and wheel them 30 minutes back home. Actually, it was like an hour back home because I couldn't really move very fast. Totally crazy. I spent the first year as an Amazon seller keying books manually, flip phone to look books up. I mean, you talk about the struggle, you guys. I've been there. Okay. So I wasted countless hours following bad advice from fake gurus. I lost thousands of dollars investing in bad inventory because I didn't know my numbers. I let a bunch of internet weirdos talk me out of good ideas that I later found out were actually profitable ideas. And I learned that for every good idea you have, there's going to be like 100 people online who are going to tell you that you're wrong. I've made every mistake, okay, you can make. So either that's going to make you think, oh, I can relate to this guy, or this guy is not worth listening to at all. So pick one. So now let's get into a complete textbook masterclass, everything I know about turning textbooks into gold. Okay, so profit pillar number 1 is what I call textbook intelligence. And this is kind of a sort of a obscure sounding title, but let me define it for you. Textbook intelligence, as I define it, is the complete body of knowledge to identify textbooks, understand the textbook buyer, and the market forces that drive sales. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about in the first part of this webinar. So here's what we're going to cover: the myth of textbook season, as I call it, what textbook buyers care about, what they don't care about, do older editions sell, condition as it relates to textbooks, textbooks in disguise, which is probably the most important part of this, where Amazon sellers lose the most amount of money with textbooks, how to describe your textbooks, the peak days of textbook season, and more. And I'm going to try to cram all of this into like 15 minutes. Okay. So, and then we're going to go to pricing and then sourcing. Okay, so how big is the textbook market? This actually kind of blew my mind when I actually looked these numbers up. The total number of schools, I didn't have a recent number, but from 2015, 7,200 schools. The total number of students as of 2017 was over 20 million. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. If there's, I don't know the number, I forget, it's like 300 million people in this country, right? So you might be thinking, okay, well, students then represent like 7 or 8% of the total of our total market, the total number of people we're selling to. Students represent about 7 or 8% of that. Actually, I think that's completely wrong. Have you heard the statistics that something like, it's like something crazy, like, no offense if any of you are on this webinar and you don't read, but I read a lot, but there's some statistic that like 80% of people have not read a book after the age of 22 or something, or don't read more than 1 book a year or something crazy, right? So the point is, I believe that students make up actually over 50% of our customer base as Amazon sellers. I can't prove that. I can't back it up. But if you notice how dramatically sales increased during January and August, it's insane, right? I mean, you can literally do like 5-10 times the revenue during those months. So I really believe that students represent a disproportionately large percentage of our customers. So let me talk about textbook season. Okay. So I'm kind of hyped up this webinar as, hey, textbook season is right around the corner, January 1st, sales explode, right? That's why I want to do this webinar now, so I can give you a bunch of profitable information that you can prepare for textbook season. But now I'm coming back saying, hey, it's actually a myth. So what am I talking about? What is this contradiction? Well, it is a myth and it's not. I've hyped up on my blog and other places, my videos, I've hyped up this notion, this concept of a textbook season a lot. But then I learned that I wasn't actually responsible about that message, and I kind of learned to regret it. And so here's what I mean. Here's how most Amazon sellers look at textbook season. They think that textbook season is the 2 times of year when people buy textbooks. Totally wrong. Here's how we should look at textbook season. The 2 times of year when textbook sales go up. So it's not that textbooks don't sell year round. They do sell year round. The fact is the sales simply go up. So it's kind of a glass half empty versus glass half full mindset, okay? Textbooks sell year round. They just simply go up during textbook season. It's not that textbooks don't sell and then they happen to sell, or they only sell during textbook season. So I think I was kind of irresponsible by how I talked about textbook season for the last few years, okay? So textbooks sell year round. If you're older, like maybe a little bit older than me, the world that existed when you were in school does not exist any longer. And this is really important. It's really, I think younger people tend to get this more. If you're a little bit older, it's hard to adjust to reality, to the current landscape, the current situation as it exists in higher education, which is that there is a vastly greater diversity in higher education now than there ever has been, meaning that college like semesters and so forth, they're not synced up the way they used to be. So there was a time, like in the 80s or 70s or before, when like you could reasonably expect that almost all schools started and ended, and the semester started and ended right around the same time across the board. But today we've got online courses and just a dramatically increased variety in higher education, which amounts to textbook selling year round. So the peaks of textbook season, what this means is the peaks of textbook season are not as high as they used to be, and the lows of the off season really aren't that low at all. Does that make sense? So if you think that textbooks are a seasonal business, you are living in a world that no longer exists. And that's actually a good thing, because it means, seasonal businesses aren't really good businesses, right? These aren't good businesses to be in. That's not, as booksellers, we're not only selling textbooks, but that does represent a big chunk for most of us of our revenue. And so the good news is we're not in a seasonal business. Textbooks sell year round. Okay, so that said, sales will spike in about 3 weeks. So January 1st, I'll get into the dates here in a second, but January 1st is pretty much like when the ribbon gets cut on textbook season and sales start to explode. So here are the dates everyone wants to know for the spring semester. The kickoff date for textbook season, the peak, the sales explode, students get their syllabuses, everything, right around January 1st, okay? January 1st, January 2nd, that's when sales start to explode. The peak of textbook season is going to be the first week of January, and then sales mostly return to normal after the 3rd week of January, okay? So you've got about a 3-week window to really, really get your ducks in a row and have everything, like all your inventory in, everything priced, everything ready, and then when January 1st hits, you're going to see that spike, and it's almost inevitable unless you're doing something horribly wrong, okay? So everyone wants to know, how many textbooks will I sell during textbook season? Or they ask, hey, what percentage of my textbooks will I sell? And we always get these questions when I go to Q&A at the end. So I want to get this out of the way now so I can head that off. How many textbooks do I need in my inventory to make X amount of dollars? Everybody always asks this, like, I need to make $5,000. Just give me a number. Tell me exactly how many textbooks I need to have in my inventory to hit that target, right? This comes up all the time. And if you're an experienced Amazon seller, it should be very clear what the folly is in these questions, which is that these are simply the wrong questions. There is no answer to these questions. The questions themselves are flawed. And the reason they're flawed is this depends on so many variables, right? It depends on pricing. It depends on how high demand your books have. Like, are you shipping in books that are ranked 2 million? Well, you're going to get different results than if your books are ranked 30,000, right? How consistently do you reprice? Like, these are all things that factor into how well you're going to do during textbook season. Okay, so this is really, really important stuff. So what I always say is, if you focus on sourcing quality inventory and then pricing and effectively and then repricing that inventory regularly, the rest takes care of itself. That is the stuff you can control, not just with textbooks, but with all Amazon inventory, is focus on quality inventory. In other words, don't ship in anything if it sucks, right? And then pricing it intelligently and consistently, and the rest takes care of itself. That's this entire business, but especially with textbooks, because that's where textbooks are where pricing, which is what the next section of this webinar is about, where pricing ends up being more important than any other category, period. Okay, so Another huge question. And by the way, I sent you guys an email saying, hey, send me your questions. And I got, dozens and dozens of responses. And this one came up I think 5 times, which is, do older editions of textbooks sell? Well, I don't know how to put this to you gently, but this is among the single most destructive questions that Amazon sellers get hung up on, and it's one of the it's dangerous for you to ask. How do I put this? Well, this will become clear in a second. The age or edition of a textbook, I'm going to speak slowly for the first time in this webinar because I really want to drive this point home. The age or edition of a textbook is not just a lesser data point. It is literally 100% completely, totally irrelevant. I cannot stress that enough. And you're probably scratching your head going, that doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? You're insane. Why? How could it be irrelevant if we're on the 15th edition of a textbook? And if I find the 8th edition, why would that be irrelevant? That's an old textbook. No one's going to buy it. Actually, I am unwavering in this statement that the edition is completely irrelevant. You should disregard it entirely. Here's why. Here's why it's meaningless. The only thing that matters with measuring textbook sales is sales rank history. And actually, it says sales rank, but assuming you have a tool that gives you, like your scanning app or whatever, gives you sales rank history, that is the only thing that matters, period. That's the only measure of a book's demand is sales rank. It's not edition. It's not how old the book is. What does the sales rank history, what does it indicate? That tells the whole story, okay? Nothing else matters. There could be totally crazy reasons why the older edition of a textbook might sell. We don't know, right? We can't possibly know all the market forces that go into. Maybe Amazon's algorithm is flawed and it's putting the 8th edition at the top of the page. Like, we don't know, right? The point is, if the sales rank history indicates it's selling, the book is selling, period, end of story. So if you've got the 12th edition of Introduction to Biology and it was published 2 decades ago, and we're now in the 300th edition, okay? If the sales rank indicates that book is selling, it's selling, period. I can't stress that enough. And this is an important lesson in business and in life and everything. Don't get hung up on what makes sense. Just shut off your brain and defer to the data. That will serve you to kind of get your ego out of it and just go, okay, what does the data say? And just defer to that entirely. Here's another common myth about textbooks. Textbooks become obsolete over years, not over semesters. So one of the common fears of Amazon sellers is, hey, especially with new long-term storage fees, it's like, look, I don't want to, I'm worried I'm going to ship my textbook in, and then university professors next semester are not going to assign this book to their students. In other words, maybe it's in demand now, but what about next semester? And they're going to be, and the concern is, I'll be stuck with the textbook that nobody is being assigned in school anymore. That is not how it works. Okay. It really, truly is not how it works. There is no such thing as a textbook that is on college syllabuses one semester and then universally vanishes from, remember, there's 7,500 schools. There's no such thing as a book that is in demand now that next semester, all of the schools conspire in one big room and they rub their palms together and go, ha, 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 we're not going to assign this next semester. Let's all agree to a conspiracy. That's not how it works. Okay. So like I said, there's so many colleges, there's no way there's course material uniformity. So this is great news, because what this means is that demand will coast to a stop over several semesters, not from one semester to the next. Okay. So in other words, you'll get plenty of lead time. If your book is in demand now, it will be many, many, many semesters, probably a couple years or so before it truly is not in demand at all. Okay. Now, here are some factors that don't matter when you're determining the value of your textbooks. So when you're going to set a price, right, you're listing your inventory. This is really important. A big mistake Amazon sellers make is they go, okay, well, what's the rental price? I need to underprice the rental price, otherwise no one will buy my book. Or they go, okay, what's the Kindle price? I have to underprice Kindle, otherwise no one will buy my book. Or, well, if there's someone selling it cheaper on eBay, I need to underprice eBay because then I'll lose a sale to eBay, okay? Here's a really, really valuable tip, especially with textbooks. Assume that your buyer is only looking at the page that your book is on, and they're not scouring the internet, scouring the rest of Amazon, looking at Kindle. Assume that they're only looking at the page that your book is on, and they're not looking anywhere else. And even if you don't shop that way, I promise you most Amazon sellers do shop that way. They're lazy. They just want to in and out. And they're definitely not like comparing Kindle or like that's just all extraneous information. Ignore it completely. Okay. Okay, another question is, should you wait until January to ship your textbooks in? So let's say you got a bunch of textbooks now, or, or let's say the rest of the year, let's say it's like February, March. Should you wait until August to ship your textbooks in? Well, as I said before, seasonal businesses tend to not be sustainable. So my approach is this, and this is this is the approach of somebody that can wait a little bit longer to get a return on their investment. So if you need money like fast, you might want to approach this a little bit differently. But what I do is anytime I get a textbook in my inventory, I will ship it in immediately. But I will price that textbook for what I think it's going to be priced at when the prices go up in the next textbook season. So like right now, that would be January. So what I do is I price it what I call unreasonably high, and there is no scientific formula for this. It's just basically beyond what I think anyone's going to pay for it anytime soon, depending on the sales rank, and then I will price it for what I think it's going to be sell for during textbook season, and I'll just simply wait for a sale. But here's what's interesting. A lot of textbooks, even when I ship them in, I price them at a price. I was like, no one will ever buy this book for this amount. Like, I'm like 5th or 6th down the page. No one will ever buy this before textbook season. What's weird is that a lot of those books do sell, and and a lot of them sell really quickly. So I end up getting a price that's way beyond what I thought. And then there's a certain percentage, a large percentage that don't sell anytime soon, but they do sell during textbook season. Okay. So that's how to get the most amount for your textbooks, but always ship your books in as soon as you get them, because, especially with textbooks, like you're not really at tremendous risk of incurring long-term storage fees. You generally expect your textbooks to sell in the next 6 months. So I don't really worry about that too much. Okay. Another thing, if you're one of those people that really digs into the numbers, and you dig into the sales rank history data, like you're one of those people that always looks at a book on Keepa or Camel before you invest in a book, ignore all sales rank data from mid-December. And this is actually really important. Mid-December is in other words, basically what we're coming up on right now is the worst time of year for textbook sales. Textbook sales grind to a virtual halt during mid-December. And actually, the low point has actually already started. So you want to ignore any worst sales rank data figures in Keepa or Camel that happened during mid-December, because that's an outlier scenario. Okay, so mid-December is like the worst time. So it's really important to keep in mind what matters to textbook buyers and what doesn't. Well, what doesn't matter as much as with other books when it comes to textbook buyers is inserts, condition, and what does matter is the absence of highlighting. Okay, so let me be really clear about this. I'm not saying these things don't matter. I'm not saying inserts don't matter to a single buyer anywhere. I'm just saying they don't matter as much as you would think they do. And with condition, most textbook buyers, they're students, they just don't care, right? Like they don't even want that book to begin with, right? Like they're forced to buy the book. They're not sweating the details. They get the book, they toss it aside. Like they just really don't care that much about conditions. So you can relax your standards a little bit when it comes to students. What does matter to some students, if anything matters at all, is the absence of highlighting. Now, I'm going to get into this in a second. I'm not saying that highlighting doesn't matter. I'm saying I'll get into this in a second. So let's address the first point about inserts. Okay. Now, this is an actual statistic. I hired 45 virtual assistants. I locked them in a basement, and I forced them to work around the clock for 6 months to come up with this statistic. Are you ready? I had them crunch massive amounts of numbers. I spoiled my own punchline. Here's the actual annual revenue that Amazon sellers lose because they're afraid to list books that don't have inserts. This happens a lot, okay? People get a textbook. They think if it doesn't have the CD or the access code, they can't sell it, right? Actual statistic, as numbers crunched by a team of people in India working around the clock for 6 months, 1 million, kajillion, billion, zillion, trillion, kajillion, billion, million. Actual figure. It's weird that it worked out to be such a round number, but this is the actual figure. Now, yes, this is my attempt at a bad joke, but the point is that do not be one of these people. Don't contribute to this figure. Textbook inserts simply do not matter that much. In fact, I don't even mention it if my book does not have all the inserts. Most textbook buyers simply do not care. They don't matter that much. I won't hesitate to sell any textbook that is missing a CD or access code. I don't even mention their absence. What I do mention is the presence of inserts. Excuse me, I'm choking, because I do think that a lot of textbook buyers think that the inserts matter, or they think they're going to want them, but when in reality, when they get a textbook, they just don't even care, right? I think that's how it works. So my experience is almost no one cares about these. As bonus insurance, Amazon includes a disclaimer warning buyers in the checkout process that used books are probably not going to include inserts. So you're covered from a couple of sides there. So what doesn't matter as much also is condition. Now, I'm not saying condition does not matter, okay? I'm just saying that textbook buyers are not nearly as particular as the general Amazon buyer. So you're generally not going to see a lot of frivolous feedback from textbook buyers like, I ordered a very good copy and I received a good copy. Like, we've all gotten textbook feedback like this, right? Generally, the textbook buyer is looking for an intact book that is free of highlighting, and they oftentimes won't even care about that. But you can relax your grading standards somewhat when it comes to textbooks because students just don't care that much. Now, here's the thing. I'll never forget the email I got after I did this webinar. I think it was like a year and a half ago. And I got an email from a woman. The point I made was, I was like, look, here's the deal. The fact is that students right now have a list of 1,000 things that they're focused on. And the condition, whether or not the textbook they bought has a bump on the corner, is not in that list of top 1,000 things, okay? They're worried about their girlfriends or boyfriends. They're worried about the next party they're going to. And the joke I made in this webinar was, let's be honest, they're probably stoned right now, and they're too high to even care. Now, I don't even drink. I don't do any drugs. Like, I'm not trying to glorify that behavior. But the fact is that many students, I was trying to make a point, but I got an email from someone that was like, I'm extremely offended by you because my daughter's in school and how dare you insinuate that she's on drugs? And I mean, she is probably, let's be honest. Okay. But the point is, students don't care that much. Okay. They just don't care about condition. They're focused on Snapchat. Okay. So what does matter to textbook buyers? Well, if they cared about anything, it's probably the question of, does this book have highlighting or not? A lot of students do feel strongly about this. Not all, probably not even most, but a lot of them do. And so if they do care, they probably are not going to buy a book unless it clearly states no highlighting in the condition description. Now, I'm not saying most textbook buyers care, but the ones that do will pay more to avoid highlighting. So this is one little tip that can make you a lot of money. And I've actually gotten crazy feedback where people went and followed this advice. My advice is to include the phrase no writing or highlighting front and center in your condition description. And I've had a couple of people who have told me they went through their entire inventory, edited the condition description, or started including this when they list books, and they saw their sales of textbooks skyrocket. And this really will give your textbook sales a big boost to add no writing or highlighting to the front, because you realize how many textbook buyers care about this, and you realize how, if you go and look, how few Amazon sellers actually mention. Most books will say may include highlighting or writing, but how many actually ever say no writing or highlighting definitively? And so it allows you to price even higher because you can capitalize on the people that do care. This will give your sales a big boost. But that said, highlighting is not a textbook death sentence. A lot of buyers actually prefer highlighting because it means someone has done the work for them. So don't avoid a textbook just because it has highlighting. Now, this is a huge one, you guys. I can't stress this enough. This is maybe hard to understand, but I can't stress enough how important what I'm going to talk about in the next couple slides is. Textbooks in disguise, you guys. Most textbooks do not look like textbooks. I want to be very clear about this. When you think of a textbook, I think the average dimension, it's like 8 inches by 10 inches, right? That's what you think of as an average textbook, the big doorstopper size book, right? We all know a textbook when we see one, but here's a fact. Something like 80, I'm pulling a number out of the air, but 80 or 90% of textbooks don't look like textbooks. And what I mean by that is these are books that you can command textbook level prices for, but you would never price as textbooks if you don't know how to spot them. So I'm going to get into pricing in the next section. This is really, really key stuff, but all pricing rules go out the window when it comes to textbooks. In other words, you can price, as an FBA seller, you can price textbooks insanely higher and still get sales. A lot of us know this, a lot of us don't. But you can't get those prices if you don't know that a lot of the books that you're listing is normal. In other words, where you're applying normal pricing rules to them when you should be applying textbook pricing rules to them, because they don't look like textbooks. So if you can learn how to spot what I call textbooks in disguise, This is massive. This will be massive for your revenue, okay? And I want you to study this image here on the right here, this Jane Austen book. And I want you to look at this, and I want you to ask yourself, Jane Austen is a book that has sold millions of copies. It's considered a classic piece of literature. Most of the people buying Jane Austen are not students. But I want you to look at this cover here, and I want you to see if you can tell, it should be pretty obvious, why this particular edition of Jane Austen is almost entirely going to be sold to students, and why you should price this particular copy of Jane Austen as a textbook, not as a normal book. Okay, so just while you're studying that cover, let me continue this point. These are books, what I call textbook in disguise, are books you can price insanely high. These are also books that go way up in demand at the beginning of each semester, but again, they don't look like textbooks. So how do you spot these? Well, unfortunately, there is no science to this. You just learn this over being an Amazon seller for a long time. But here are some general principles that you can apply. A textbook in disguise is a niche nonfiction book that has no real world application. Basically, something that's so weird that no one would care about it if they weren't forced to care by a professor. Okay, that's a good rule of thumb. Number two is books that have those giant square stickers on the back or other markings that indicate they were sold at a college bookstore. A lot of us know what these are. If you've been selling on Amazon for any length of time, you know how to spot these sort of like used books, college bookstore stickers, those giant white stickers that are on the backs of a lot of textbooks. That indicates that's a textbook, okay? Textbook in disguise. Or normal books that have supplemental material like annotations, added analysis, etc. That's what I was hinting at with this book. Look at the Jane Austen cover. It says annotated edition. The average Jane Austen reader will not need an annotated edition. Who does need an annotated edition? Students. Okay, that's a textbook in disguise, classic textbook in disguise. And then just any nonfiction that generally appears scholarly and academic. This is extremely important because the majority of textbooks will fit into this category. Again, I'm pulling a number out of the air. Probably 80% of books that you price normally, you should be pricing, or I'm sorry, 80% of textbooks, you're probably not pricing as textbooks. And I'll get into textbook pricing here in just a minute. But that means you're leaving a massive amount of money on the table if you don't understand this stuff, okay? So now we've got to the end of part one of this webinar. You now have a genius level textbook IQ. If you actually felt up to your head right now, you should probably have noticed your brain has swelled roughly to the size of this gentleman here on the right side of the screen because I just packed a ton of information into like 20 minutes. So we learned that textbook season is glass half full, not glass half empty. Peak days for textbook sales, the truth about older textbooks, what textbook buyers care about, what they don't care about, what matters most when describing your textbooks, spotting textbooks in disguise. And now we're going to get into the least sexy, but perhaps the most important part of this webinar, which is how to price textbooks. Why is textbook pricing important? Well, this is probably second only to your inventory, maybe even tied for first in what separates the people who make a lot of money with textbooks from the people who merely do okay. It's where most of the money with textbooks is made and lost when it comes to pricing. The people that don't understand how to price textbooks intelligently are leaving a massive amount of money on the table. You can have two people, both of whom have 500 textbooks in their inventory. One of them will literally make 3 times more than the other. And the reason is that one of them knows how to price their textbooks, the other one doesn't. Let me make that case with some examples here. Let's say you've got a textbook that you price for, it's a heavy textbook, and you price it at $10 FBA, and you get a $2 payout, okay? You get the same textbook, and a more aggressive seller who knows how to price the textbook prices it at $17. They get a $7 payout. That's literally 3 times the return. Another textbook, let's say someone prices it at $15 because they don't know how to price textbooks. And a more aggressive seller who knows how to price textbooks prices that same book at $30. They get an $18 payout, which is 3 times the return. Another even more glaring example, somebody that prices a textbook at $20, they get a $10 payout. You have the same textbook, a more aggressive seller prices it at $50, and they get a $40 payout. That is 4 times the return. So that's the point, you guys. Slightly bolder pricing can literally triple your revenue. Okay, I cannot stress this enough, but this is not going to work for non-textbooks because textbooks follow totally different market forces than normal textbooks. So I might actually skip this part. I want to get all this whole webinar into an hour, but most people teaching Amazon selling there's a virtual blackout when it comes to pricing. They simply don't talk about it, even though it is among the most important subjects when it comes to textbooks, if not the most important. And I think the reason there's almost a total blackout on the subject is it's not exciting. It's subjective. There really is no right way, right? It's really hard to teach because ultimately you could have three people pricing the same book, three different ways, and no one's really right. It's just a matter of like how fast you want the book to sell. Like it's hard to actually teach this stuff, right? And it's complicated. There's at least 6 different variables you have to consider every time you set a price. So it really is a difficult thing to teach. And I was going to get into my whole conspiracy theory. I won't really go into this, but basically, I think most gurus out there just want your money. And when you talk about teaching delayed gratification, which is essentially what I'm talking about here, which is pricing your textbooks higher and waiting for the highest price sale you can get, that's not an easy sell for most people that have that kind of get rich quick mindset where they just want to quickly like turn a textbook over and they don't really actually want to wait for the maximum amount of profit they can possibly get, right? So you're going to get more sales if you price like an amateur, but you'll get more money if you price intelligently. Okay. So I'm not going to get into this whole thing. I had this story I was going to tell about how I got this video on YouTube about someone who claims they're like this expert at pricing, and they had this ridiculous formula where they said, take the bottom 3 FBA prices and average them together. And that's how you should price a textbook, which is totally negligently fraudulent of a formula. Just completely wrong. It sounds good if you don't know what you're doing, if you're new to Amazon, but it's a totally fake formula and it's ridiculous. Anyway, that's how a lot of the pricing stuff out there is taught now. And the real way to price is to factor in 5 different prices. I'm not going to get into the whole, this really is complicated. So I don't want to overwhelm you with information here. But every time you set a price on any book, not just textbooks, you have to factor in about 5 different variables. You have to factor in the sales rank history, right? That's one variable that you need to factor in when you set a price. You have to factor in the lowest merchant fulfilled price because, if the lowest merchant fulfilled is $30, obviously you need to price a lot higher than 30, but so you're going to price it totally differently than a book that has the lowest merchant fulfilled price of $5, right? That's pretty obvious. You have to factor in the lowest FBA price or the lowest few FBA prices. You have to factor in Amazon's price because you can't price higher than Amazon. And you have to factor in the type of book. Remember, because textbooks or even audiobooks, you price differently than other books, and you have to factor in what kind of book are we dealing with. So these are all things you have to consider when you set a price. So if you don't consider each of these, and by the way, you guys, when you get good at this, and a lot of you already are, but when you get good at this, you can literally assess this stuff in under 3 seconds. And I mean that literally. Scan a book, boom, 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 boom. You instantly know how you're going to price a book. And I mean, it happens like lightning speed. So don't think you need to pull out a whiteboard every time you price a book, because this will become second nature very quickly. But the most important point of this section is that all pricing rules go out the window with textbooks. I can't stress this enough. Textbooks follow totally different pricing laws than other books. So as an FBA seller, you can price textbooks insanely higher than non-FBA offers and still get sales. That's the most important message here. And there's almost no limit to how aggressively you can price a high demand textbook. Most people don't believe this until they try it. Now, there are 3 reasons for this. There's actually more than 3 reasons, but there's 3 reasons why you can price textbooks insanely higher and still get sales. Number 1 is urgency. Students usually wait till the last minute. They need their second day shipping. When they get assigned the textbooks for the semester, they have a limited window of time where they need to have those textbooks before school starts, and they can't rely on a merchant fulfilled seller. And Amazon will always estimate please allow 3 to 4 weeks for this book or whatever. Students cannot tolerate that. They need Prime eligible offers. Next up is the student program. Amazon Prime for college students college students get a Prime subscription at a discounted rate, which means that students are disproportionately high number of Prime subscribers. And then thirdly, some mystical forces that honestly nobody really understands. I think a big factor, if I had to be honest, it took me a while to figure this out, but I think a big factor is the fact that students know their parents are paying for everything. And so they don't care about spending more money because it's not their money. So they'll go, oh yeah, I'll spend $70 to get second day shipping on a book that I could, otherwise spend $15 on. Because it's just not their money, right? And if you're a parent with a student in school, you are cringing right now. But the big takeaway here is that with textbooks, people will pay way more for FBA offers than any other category, period. So all rules go out the window. So you might be wondering, okay, well, what's the formula? Well, again, as I said before, there is no right way, right? So I have to give you kind of a rough formula here, but this is a formula that I would apply. Now, I want to be clear about this. I'm going to give you how I would price a book in the absence of any FBA competition at all, which is what I'm going to talk about on this slide. But keep in mind, that is not a very common scenario. The vast majority, meaning 95% of all books, have other FBA sellers, right? So the only reason I'm going to talk about this on this slide is because I want you to know what the potential is and literally how aggressive you could price in a perfect world where we were the only FBA sellers out there, right? So in a perfect world with no FBA competition, if a book was ranked 1 to 30,000, I would probably price $50 to $100 above the lowest non-FBA offer. And honestly, it'd probably be actually closer to 100. If a book had an average rank of 30,000 to 150,000, I'd price $40 to $70 above the lowest non-FBA offer. And I still think you could price $100 above and still get sales. 150,000 to 300,000, $35 to $50 above the non-FBA offer, and then 300,000 to 600,000, price $30 to $60 above the lowest non-FBA offer. And then when we get outside of that, 600, 900,000, I still think you can go $25 to $35 above. Okay, that's the power of FBA when it comes to textbooks. However, like I said, textbooks with no FBA offers are hard to find. So the big question becomes, how do you price a textbook when you're up against many FBA sellers? And when it's just before textbook season, like right now, it's a delicate balance of not pricing too low, but not pricing yourself off the page either. So there really is no hard science to this, but here's how I would do it. Here's my textbook pricing formula. So when a book, this has been tried and tested over many, many years. I do think this is kind of a mid-range formula. I think you could get a lot more aggressive than this and still get sales. I also think if you need your money really fast, maybe you should be a little more conservative. So this is just kind of a mid-range formula here. So if the book is ranked 1 to 30,000, I'd price 5th or 6th lowest down the page, meaning the 5th, when you filter just to show FBA offers, you can price 5th or 6th lowest down right now in preparation for the January textbook sales rush. 30 to 300,000, I would price 5th or 6th lowest. 300,000 to 600,000, I'd price 3rd or 4th lowest going into textbook season. And then 600 and 900,000, I'd price 2nd or 3rd lowest, okay? And then consider if any of these competing offers are acceptable condition and check your prices daily. I can't stress this enough. Reprice when it comes to textbooks. After the peak, I mean, when we get past the first week of January, if you really are intent on your textbook selling during textbook season, plan on dropping your textbooks into the bottom 3 lowest prices. And again, you don't have to do this. It's just if you really want those sales. And then unless you're dealing with books in the top strata, like the top 50,000, in which case it really doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter that much. Those prices are really volatile. So then I would get progressively more conservative. You get towards the 3rd week of January, after which sales mostly return to normal, okay? Now, repricing is really key during textbook season, okay? So especially when you're in January, I can't stress this enough. By the way, you guys, I'm in a hotel conference room, and they're vacuuming outside, and I kind of think they might come in here, so this could get really interesting because I'm not supposed to be in this room. If you missed the first part of this webinar,